Welcome to Daily Focus. And I think we have some of the bugs worked out in our live stream. And so I guess it was posting things, or I don't know what all was going on. But anyway, I think we've solved it. And I thank the Lord for people who know what they're doing to help keep everything professional, and the hard work that they do to help me, who knows almost nothing about technology. Well, we are looking at Psalm 78, and we are looking at verses 43 and following down to verse 56. And it says, "They remembered not his hand, nor the day when he delivered them from the enemy." What a sad thing. I've entitled this one, "Do You Remember?" And it's just so easy to forget. If we don't rehearse and remind ourselves what God has done, when God rescued us, when God delivered us, when God helped us, when God provided a way, when God paved the path, whatever the case may be, we need to remember. And remembering is intentional. Otherwise, we are prone to forget. And we remember things oftentimes that were life altering. Things that were really exciting are hard to forget. Things that were really scary are hard to forget. Some of the things that were extremely difficult can be hard to forget. And we need to remember the part God played in all of that. I remember that one person that lost a dear loved one was saying, "I want grace." And absolutely, it was a terrible time and a difficult time. But they, by their own testimony, can say they can look back and see God's grace carrying them through those grieving moments and those difficult decisions and those lonely moments. And they can look back and see God's grace truly is sufficient. But if we don't remember it, if we don't call it to our minds, it's easy for us to forget and to let it go, and to maybe remember things that are temporal and let them be the major part. And so here, God is saying of the Ephraimites, you just didn't remember the things that I did. And then he's going to list them, how he had wrought his signs in Egypt and his wonders in the fields of Zoan. And he turned their rivers into blood and their floods that they could not drink. He sent divers sorts of flies among them, which devoured them, and frogs, which destroyed them. He gave also their increase unto the caterpillars, and their labor unto the locusts. He destroyed their vines with hail, and their sycamore trees with frost. He gave up their cattle also to the hail, and their flocks to hot thunderbolts, or raining down. I can't think of the term that is going to happen even in the tribulation period, where rocks of fire are actually going to be descending from heaven. That happened in Egypt. He cast them upon them the fierceness of his anger, wrath, and indignation and trouble, by sending evil angels among them, the death angel, to kill the oldest child. He made a way to his anger. He spared not their soul from death, but gave their life over to the pestilence, and smote all the firstborn of Egypt, the chief of their strength, and the tabernacle of Ham. But made his own people to go forth like sheep, and guided them in the wilderness like a flock. And he led them on safety, so that they feared not, but the sea overwhelmed their enemies. And he brought them to the border of his sanctuary, even to the mountain which his right hand had purchased. He cast out the heathen also before them, and divided them an inheritance by line, and made the tribes of Israel to dwell in their tents. Yet they tempted and provoked the Most High God, and kept not his testimonies. What a sad connotation, that if we don't remember what is true about God, if we don't remember God's faithfulness, if we don't acknowledge God's provision and providence, we are prone to forget, and we begin to get off track. Our focus becomes temporary on things that are temporal. Our path that we tend to focus on and try to accomplish is something for the here and now, or something that caters to a selfish agenda or a selfish motive. And we become very self-centered. That's what happened to the Ephraimites. Is if they would have just spent some time remembering the mighty works of God, rehearsing the mighty works of God with their children and grandchildren, if they would have said, listen, remember that in Egypt, God came to our rescue. He dealt with these Egyptians. He brought miraculous things that reminded us of his power and his control and sovereignty. And they suffered because they had us in bondage, and God said, let my people go, and they wouldn't do it. And God showed himself strong to where he let us out like sheep. And then when our back was against the wall of the Red Sea, he opened it up and we went across on dry ground, and he killed all the enemies with that sea. And then he led us through the wilderness, and he brought us to the promised land, and he divided the land, and he gave us all our place to call home and to develop and to occupy. And to drive the enemies out. And we watched him allow us to do that. And we needed to rehearse these things over and over and over again. And yet they didn't. Instead, they would blame God for not doing what they wanted, for not showing up when they asked him to, for not dealing with that problem over there the way they wanted him to. And they treated God like a genie that was supposed to just do what he was told. And they tempted God and provoked the Most High and kept not his testimony. They were there to show people God, not them. They were there to be a testimony of God's person, not draw attention to themselves. And that's the same thing that's true for us as Christians. Our job is to draw attention to our great Savior, our powerful God. We're not here to draw attention to ourselves. We need to learn to get over ourselves and how life is affecting us. And remember, we're here to affect the way people think about God. And so remember God. Remember his provision. Remember who he is, what he's like, what he has done, what he's doing, what he's promised to do. And let's declare the mighty works of God. I hope you have a great day today. We're looking forward to what God has in store for us today. Pray for me. I have a number of conferences today with pastors from all over the state regarding some involvement to help our state think right, to promote righteousness. Righteousness exalts a nation. And I think the church ought to lead the way in that. And so you be praying as we go through this day that God would be magnified in all of our lives. God bless you. I'll see you again tomorrow.